The silence of open space never felt peaceful to Captain Rhett Calder. Not today. The bridge of the Hades Spear was dim, lit only by the cold glow of tactical screens tracking the convoy they'd lost contact with 12 hours earlier. Calder stood near the display, hands clasped tightly behind him, trying to ignore the tension forming in his throat. Still no response from the research flotilla? Calder asked, keeping his voice steady. Lieutenant Mara Solis shook her head. No transponders. No distress beacons. Nothing but static. Static meant destruction. At this range, someone would have answered. Even a damaged ship could spit out a beacon. Calder nodded once. Helm, take us in. Full burn. The engines roared through the hull. The bridge crew moved efficiently, but Calder sensed their worry. A civilian convoy had no reason to go dark. They were unarmed, harmless, and known for collecting nothing more dangerous than mineral samples. His brother, Jace, served aboard one of them. The navigation hologram flickered, resolving into the scattered debris field ahead. Burnt metal spun slowly, reflecting the starlight in fractured glints. Something tightened in Calder's chest. By all stars, Mara whispered. The wreckage had been sliced apart. Not blasted, not struck by asteroids, cut with precision. Calder leaned closer, studying the patterns. These were no human weapons. They were Karun energy signatures. Open a channel, he ordered quietly. The comm officer's fingers danced across her console. Searching for surviving black boxes. I've got one. Damage, but the data core's intact. Patch it to my screen. A distorted video flashed to life. Sparks burst across a research vessel's corridor. Jace appeared, helmet cracked, blood running down his cheek. Unknown vessels, cut through hull, no warning. Static swallowed his voice, but one final scream tore through the feed before the recording collapsed. Calder closed his eyes for a moment. The grief was sharp but controlled. He inhaled once, exhaled slow, and turned back to the crew. We have confirmation, he said. This wasn't a patrol accident. This was a targeted strike. Mara clenched her jaw. The Dominion signed peace accords with us last year. Calder almost laughed. Peace accords don't mean anything to someone who sees us as animals. He tapped a command, enlarging the energy traces on the display. A clear match appeared. Calder felt a cold certainty settle in. Karun warship. Mid-range cutter. How did they get this close to the frontier? Mara asked. That's what we're going to find out. The intercom chimed, an incoming call from Vanguard 3's Central Command. Admiral Wren's stern face projected into the bridge. Report, Calder. We lost contact with that convoy. Your findings? Calder answered without hesitation. Destroyed by Karun forces. They executed the entire flotilla. A murmur rippled across nearby stations. Admiral Wren's expression darkened. Do you have proof? Calder sent the energy signature logs and the black box recording. The Admiral watched the final seconds of Jace's transmission. The pain that crossed her face lasted only a moment before she masked it. This is an act of war, she said. Agreed. We're calling an emergency council session. The Dominion must respond for this. They won't, Calder replied. This wasn't a misunderstanding. That cutter knew exactly who they were firing on. Wren studied him carefully. You're certain? They left us a message, Calder said. Jace's ship didn't have weapons, diplomats, or intelligence officers. They hit researchers. That's not aggression. That's intimidation. Wren nodded slowly. Prepare your ship for immediate recall to Vanguard 3. We need your testimony. The Admiral's image faded. Calder's reflection lingered on the blank screen, jaw tight, eyes hard, weariness buried under resolve. Mara stepped closer. Rhett, your brother's recording. I'll process it later, he said. Right now we focus. She understood and went back to her console. The crew pulled the drifting wreckage into tow while Calder moved to his quarters for a moment of solitude. The doors slid shut behind him. He sat on the edge of his bunk, pulled the black box's drive from his pocket, and placed it on the table. Jace's final scream echoed in his mind. He pressed his palms against his temples. There was no room for collapse. Not now. He steadied his breathing, forced the emotion back beneath the surface, and stood. A soft chime announced the ship's arrival at Vanguard 3. The world glowed beneath them, cold, fortified, always prepared for conflict. Calder returned to the bridge. Transmit our findings to the council chamber. Yes, sir. The ship docked. Calder walked down the ramp into the steel-blue hall lit with emergency strobes. Officers hurried past, faces grim. Word had spread. Inside the council chamber, holographic displays projected maps of the frontier. Heat signatures marked recent Karun movements. Too many. Too coordinated. They'd been preparing for this. Admiral Wren addressed the gathering of commanders and political representatives. We've confirmed the Dominion attacked our research ships. Evidence points to deliberate action. Captain Calder will present his findings. Calder stepped forward and displayed the energy readings. These are consistent with Karun weaponry. Look at the incision lines, too clean for human tech. And the final transmission confirms unidentified borders before weapon fire broke through multiple decks. A representative from Earth folded his arms. Why would they attack scientists? Because they believe humans are growing too quickly, Calder replied. They've monitored our expansion for decades. They see us as a threat that must be handled early. Another general leaned forward. Do you think this was Vorik? Calder nodded. He's the only commander aggressive enough to break treaties openly. The room tensed. Everyone knew Vorik's reputation, brutal, ambitious, and utterly convinced the Karun must dominate the Orion arm. Admiral Wren changed the display to a long-range sensor map. It showed a distortion ripple near the edge of the system. Moments ago, she said, we detected a Karun fleet entering our perimeter. The room erupted. Already? They moved intentionally. This timing isn't coincidence. Calder's voice cut through the noise. This is their opening gambit. They want to strike before we can unify our forces. Wren pointed at the growing red cluster on the map. This is not a scouting party. This is an invasion fleet. Calder felt a cold anger flare through him. The Dominion wanted a war? They were about to get one, and they were about to learn why humanity never died quietly. He stood straighter. Admiral, request permission for Hades' spear to engage immediately. If we stall them at the perimeter, we can protect the planet long enough to organize the defense grid. Wren considered him for only a second before nodding. Permission granted. Buy us time, Captain. Every minute counts. Calder touched his calm. All personnel to stations. Prepare for combat departure. The council chamber window displayed the distant glimmer of approaching warships, sleek, blade-like silhouettes cutting through the void with predatory grace. The Karun believed this would be quick. Calder watched them advance and whispered under his breath. You just made the worst mistake of your empire's existence. The battle for humanity had begun. The alarms blared before dawn, jarring the Hades spear from its low-power drift. Captain Rhett Calder's eyes snapped open, reflexively scanning the bridge. The Karun fleet was close, far too close. Sensors showed dozens of ships converging on Vanguard 3, each a deadly wedge of blue energy slicing through the void. Status report! Calder barked. His voice carried the weight of command. No fear, just focus. Lieutenant Mara Solis, sitting rigid at her console, answered without hesitation. They've formed a blockade around the planet's orbital defenses. Shields at 60%. Incoming fighters deploying from multiple points. Civilian evacuation convoys are still in transit, but they're exposed. Calder leaned over the display, tracing the enemy vectors. The Karun had cut them off with military precision, expecting humans to scatter, to panic. He smiled coldly. Good. That's exactly what I want them to think. A calm signal crackled. It was from a civilian transport, one of the last in line leaving Vanguard 3. Captain Calder, they ships everywhere. The panicked voice broke, then static. Hold on! Calder shouted. Maneuver toward the planet's shadow. Use the debris field for cover. Solis immediately coordinated the evasion maneuvers, while Calder issued commands to the weapons officers. Light cannons, charge torpedoes. We'll make them regret every inch of space they try to cross. The Karan ships moved like predators, sharp, methodical, but humans were chaos incarnate. Calder had never seen a species better at turning desperation into a weapon. The first fighter squadron approached. The Hades Spear released decoy drones, drawing enemy fire, then pivoted sharply. Energy blasts detonated against the drones, leaving the Karun surprised and off balance. They're learning, Mara whispered. Calder grinned. They'll learn the hard way. A volley of plasma tore across the void toward Vanguard 3. Calder didn't flinch. Fire the Harbinger torpedoes. The torpedoes arced around the larger vessels, weaving through shields and detonating with pinpoint precision. One enemy cruiser flared violently and broke formation, spinning out of control. The other ships hesitated. Humans fought unpredictably, every move designed to exploit overconfidence. Calder's calm lit up again. This time, it was not a civilian. A Karun officer's voice, clipped and formal. This is Lieutenant Corzel. Human aggressor, identify yourself. Withdraw immediately or be terminated. Calder's fingers drummed on the console, a playful rhythm in the chaos. He leaned forward, voice cold and sharp. This is Captain Calder. We're not withdrawing. In fact, we were just getting started. Static crackled, followed by incomprehensible Karun screeches. The transmission ended abruptly. Who was that? Mara asked. Just a courier for arrogance, Calder said. They think fear works. It doesn't. The battle intensified. Fighters zipped around the Hades Spear, dodging fire, returning it with lethal precision. Calder directed small squadrons like a conductor, exploiting every weakness in the Karun formation. They adapted mid-battle, switching targets, rotating shields, even luring enemy craft into collisions. Through it all, Calder's mind raced. He needed intelligence. He needed to understand why the Dominion had gone from observation to annihilation so quickly. There had to be a reason beyond arrogance. A signal appeared on the board, a disabled Karun fighter drifting near the debris field. Calder ordered boarding teams. Within minutes, they seized the crippled ship, bringing it aboard Hades' Spear. Anything we can use? Mara asked. Calder examined the data logs. This is more than a strike mission. They're consolidating forces. Vorik doesn't just attack research convoys for sport, he's testing us. Mapping our responses. Seeing how we fight under pressure. Mara's eyes widened. They're learning from us? Calder nodded grimly. Exactly. Every move we make, every tactic, feeds them information. But they made a mistake. Humans don't just react. We anticipate, improvise, and adapt. That's what makes us lethal. Another alert flashed. A human evacuation convoy was under fire, caught in open space. Calder didn't hesitate. Prepare a rapid response squadron. Mara, route them through the asteroid belt. I'll lead the cover fire. The squadron launched, weaving through debris with relentless speed. Calder's sharpshooters picked off Karun fighters, creating corridors for civilian ships. Energy arcs lit the void, but Calder's calm control turned chaos into precision. One small human transport clipped a fragment of rock, systems failing. Calder didn't pause. Rescue Team Alpha, move now. Bring them aboard. Do it fast. Minutes later, the transport docked safely. Calder helped the trembling pilot from the cockpit. You're safe now. That's what matters. The pilot stared at him, awe and fear in equal measure. We didn't think we'd survive. Calder smiled tightly. Humans survive because we refuse to die quietly. Remember that. Later, Calder convened a small tactical briefing. He projected the captured Karun data on a holoscreen. Lines of fleet movements, weapon calibrations, and patrol patterns lit up the room. They're testing human ingenuity, he said. They think we'll act predictably. But look here. He tapped a point on the screen. Their flanking pattern assumes standard evasive maneuvers. We'll turn that expectation against them. Mara raised an eyebrow. You're planning a counter-strike? We're outnumbered 3-1. Calder leaned in, voice low and intense. They're arrogant, slow to adapt to chaos, and terrified of losing control. That's what makes humans deadly. We're unpredictable, and we survive where others fail. We hit when they least expect it, and we never stop. At that moment, the communications officer interrupted. Incoming transmission, current officer, surrender demand. Calder didn't even glance at the message. Patch it through, he said. A commanding Karun voice filled the bridge. Humans, your resistance is futile. Stand down, or face total annihilation. Submit, and your species may yet survive. Calder's grin was sharp. You're funny. That's what makes you dangerous. But here's the thing, humans don't negotiate with extinction. He turned to the tactical display. Prepare the Harbinger salvo. Mara, target their lead cruiser. Let's show them what happens when you underestimate the species you call vermin. The Hades spear surged forward, and human ingenuity met alien precision head-on. Torpedoes arced in deadly patterns, fighters swarmed unpredictably, and every calculation Vorik's forces had made crumbled against the raw adaptability of humans fighting for survival. In the chaos, Calder's mind was clear, focused. One thought guided him. Every move we make today will remind them why humanity survives, why humanity dominates under pressure. The first human victories lit the dark expanse of space, a brutal, elegant symphony of ferocity, skill, and cunning. And far across the Orion Arm, a Karun warlord began to realize the scope of his miscalculation. You're learning, Mara whispered. Calder looked at her, eyes glinting. No, Mara. They're just starting to learn the hard way. Humans don't surrender. We never have. The battle had only begun, and already, the Karun had discovered they had awakened a predator. The Orion Rift stretched before Captain Rhett Calder like a scar across the galaxy, black, chaotic, and alive with incoming Karun warships. His fleet, battered but unbroken, moved in jagged formations, every maneuver designed to exploit human unpredictability. Every system on the Hades spear hummed with tension, every officer alert. They weren't just fighting for a planet anymore. They were fighting for survival, for legacy, for a warning to any species foolish enough to challenge humanity. Captain! Lieutenant Mara Solis called, pointing at the tactical display. Their flagship is moving ahead of the main line, opening a corridor. Calder leaned in. Too obvious. They're baiting us. He tapped the board, bringing up simulations of every known Karun tactic. We'll split into 2 squadrons. Half follow the bait. Half circle around their flank. Use the debris cloud at the rift's edge for cover. Make them think they're dictating the battle. A technician piped up nervously. Sir, that's incredibly risky. If we miscalculate. Calder's eyes snapped to him. Then we adapt. That's what humans do. We survive the impossible and turn it into advantage. Are you in, or are you letting them win? The technician swallowed, nodding. Calder turned away, already calculating vectors, torpedo arcs, and the timing of fighter launches. The Hades spear pulsed with life, ready for chaos. Minutes later, human ships darted into the rift, weaving through debris, darting around energy pulses, and striking with precision. The Karun flagship advanced, confidence radiating from every gleaming surface. Yet, as humans predicted, their formation faltered under unpredictability. Torpedoes veered through shield gaps, fighters sliced through blind spots, and energy arcs forced enemy cruisers into collisions with the rift's jagged asteroids. Amid the chaos, Calder received a signal from his boarding teams. A Karun command vessel had been disabled and secured. On board, they discovered something unexpected. A sealed data vault, heavily encrypted, carrying centuries-old intelligence. Calder's heart raced. This isn't just about Vanguard 3, he muttered. This is history. Mara looked over his shoulder. History? What do you mean? Calder tapped into the vault. Ancient logs, written in an old Karun script, translated roughly into common galactic syntax. Battles, campaigns, and campaigns lost to a single species, the humans. Centuries ago, humans had faced a war faction of the Dominion in the same sector, outnumbered, outgunned, and yet victorious through sheer adaptability and unpredictable tactics. Humans defeated the Karun before, Mara whispered. Centuries ago? Not just defeated, Calder corrected, his voice hard. They shattered them. So thoroughly the Dominion erased it from history, claiming it never happened. But the fear remains. It's why Vorik underestimated us. He thought we were weak, chaotic, easy to eliminate. A sudden alert cut through the moment. The Karun flagship had detected their boarding party. Calder cursed under his breath. Prepare the extraction team, he ordered. We take the vault and get out before they realize what's missing. Minutes stretched like hours as human fighters covered the retreat. Torpedoes arced, shields flared, and every misstep could have been fatal. Yet Calder's calm, razor-sharp decisions kept his teams alive. By the time the vault was secured and the boarding parties extracted, the enemy formation had faltered, their flagship momentarily exposed to direct human assault. Calder activated a secure broadcast channel. All units listen. This isn't just about survival. This is a message. Humanity has survived impossible odds before. We adapt. We endure. We strike back. And we will do it again. The fleet responded with synchrony, energy arcs cutting across the void like a blade through cloth. Human ingenuity, honed under pressure and sharpened by necessity, began to dictate the flow of battle. Karun cruisers faltered. Their flagship, caught off guard, struggled to maintain formation. Calder's comm buzzed again, this time with a captured Karun officer's voice, trembling. Captain, why do you fight like this? Your species, you should not. Calder's lips curled in a cold smile. We fight because we refuse to die quietly. Every species in the galaxy fears extinction. Humans? We turn it into strategy. You call it chaos, we call it survival. And that terrifies you. The officer stammered, broken by disbelief and fear. But you shouldn't be this capable. Calder turned to Mara. This is why they fear us. Not our weapons, not our numbers. Our minds, our will, our refusal to yield. That's what terrifies every empire that underestimates humanity. Mara's eyes glimmered. So all this, the way we fight, it's history repeating? Yes, Calder said, voice low. And now history is reminding them. The battle escalated. The Hades Spear led a strike team to disable the Karun flagship's propulsion systems, weaving through heavy fire, dodging energy beams with precision that seemed impossible. Fighters darted like streaks of light, torpedoes carved through shields, and human strategy began breaking the Karun formations apart. As the flagship shuddered under repeated hits, Calder realized something crucial. Vorik was panicking. The arrogance that had driven him to strike first was cracking under the reality of human resistance. They think they control the fight, Calder muttered. They have no idea who they're facing. Another alert. The vault data had revealed the Dominion's ultimate plan: total suppression of the Orion arm if humans were not eliminated swiftly. Vorik's fleet wasn't just attacking, it was a test for annihilation. Calder's jaw tightened. Relay this intel to all human fleets, he said. If they think we're cornered, we'll prove them wrong. Every corner, every shadow, every weakness we find, we exploit. They declared war, yes. But they have no idea what species they just provoked. Mara watched him, awe and respect mixing with fear. Captain, do you really think we can survive this? Calder's eyes were cold, unwavering. Not just survive. We will dominate. We will turn this attack into a lesson for the galaxy. And Vorik, he will remember why humans are the deadliest species alive. The flagship began to falter. Explosions rippled across its hull, but it remained operational. Calder calculated the final strike. Prepare the Harbinger salvo. We finish this now. Minutes later, energy arcs detonated with surgical precision, disabling the flagship's engines and leaving it drifting, helpless. The human fleet advanced, pressing their advantage, demonstrating that even against overwhelming odds, adaptability and determination could turn tides of war. Calder stood at the bridge, hands gripping the console. His mind was already racing ahead, plotting the next move, anticipating the Dominion's counter. Somewhere across the Orion Rift, Vorik realized the terrifying truth too late. Humans were not merely survivors. Humans were predators. And they hunted with precision, patience, and relentless will. Calder's voice was steady, almost calm, as he issued orders for the next wave. Prepare for Phase 2. The Karun will learn the hard way, never underestimate humanity. The fleet surged forward. Explosions lit the rift, energy arcs painted streaks of white-hot fury. And in the midst of it, Captain Rhett Calder understood something profoundly simple. This war had only just begun, and humanity was already winning. The Orion Rift burned like a crucible. Shattered asteroids glimmered with streaks of plasma fire, drifting debris lit by the explosions of warships. Captain Rhett Calder stood on the bridge of the Hades Spear, eyes scanning the void. The Karun had thrown everything they had, cruisers, fighters, and the remnants of their flagship, but humanity remained unbroken. Captain, Lieutenant Mara Solis said, voice tight with focus. The flagship's remaining escort is reorganizing. They're trying to trap us inside the rift. Calder's lips curled into a grim smile. Good. Let them think they're dictating the fight. Chaos is our ally. Humans turn desperation into advantage. A calm alert blinked. It was a Karun transmission, distorted, urgent. Humans! Surrender. Your species cannot prevail. Stand down and perhaps you may survive. Calder leaned forward, his voice cold and sharp. Survive? We don't survive by surrendering. We survive by proving why no one should ever provoke us. Mara swallowed but nodded. The rest of the bridge crew moved with efficiency born of experience, their trust in Calder absolute. The fleet advanced in synchronized arcs, each ship exploiting every blind spot in the Dominion formation. Torpedoes arced around shields, fighters executed flanking maneuvers that defied Karun tactical calculations, and energy bursts tore through enemy hulls with precision that felt almost preternatural. Calder's mind worked faster than the fleet's weapons. Every movement of the enemy, every pattern, was analyzed, anticipated, and countered before it could take effect. The Karun, for all their numbers and discipline, were struggling to adapt. Lead cruiser breached, reported the weapons officer. They're retreating toward the rift's core. Calder's jaw tightened. Good. Draw them in. Use the gravity wells. Let them crash against their own arrogance. Mara's eyes widened. Captain, their flagship is moving independently. Vorik himself is aboard. He's coming for us directly. Calder's expression hardened. Perfect. Let's remind him why humans are the predators, not the prey. Minutes later, the flagship emerged from behind an asteroid cluster, massive and gleaming, its hull scarred but formidable. Vorik's presence radiated authority and menace. His warships followed rigidly, predictable and confident, exactly what Calder needed. Deploy the Harbinger salvo, Calder ordered. Full spread. Target his engines and weapons arrays. Mara, coordinate fighter swarms to exploit every gap. The salvo launched. Torpedoes weaved through asteroid shadows, bypassing shields, and detonated with surgical precision. The flagship shuddered violently, explosions rippling across its hull. Human fighters swarmed, darting between enemy fire, disabling systems with pinpoint accuracy. Vorik's voice crackled over calms, and raged. You are fools! You do not understand the meaning of war. Calder leaned close to the console. We do. War is survival. War is adaptation. War is making sure the species that underestimated us regrets it forever. The flagship's engines faltered. Its weapon arrays sparked and collapsed. Vorik's fleet wavered, formation breaking as his captains struggled to respond to unpredictable human tactics. Calder seized the moment. Prepare boarding teams, he said. I'm going in myself. Within minutes, Calder led a strike team directly onto Vorik's flagship. Magnetic grapplers pulled them to the hull, and the boarding party breached the airlock. Inside, corridors were silent, ominous, and illuminated by emergency red lights. Enemy soldiers fired, but human combatants moved with lethal efficiency, their precision and adaptability overwhelming Karun defenders. Calder and his team carved a path to the command deck. Vorik waited, tall and imposing, his armor glinting in the red emergency lights. He drew his energy blade, a ritualistic symbol of authority and power. "You, humans!" Vorik snarled. "You will die here!" Calder stepped forward, voice steady, eyes burning. "You already know why you lost. You underestimated humanity." The duel was brutal. Vorik's blade struck fast, but Calder's movements were unpredictable. Every feint, every counter, reflected the same ingenuity that had routed entire fleets. He used momentum, timing, and the ship's gravity fields to his advantage. Finally, with a calculated strike, he disarmed Vorik and held him at bay. "You thought we were chaotic," Calder said, pressing his advantage. "But this is order through adaptability. Survival through ingenuity. And this is why humans are feared across the galaxy." Vorik's eyes widened, realization dawning too late. You are predators." "Yes," Calder said, voice low. "And predators survive. Predators dominate. You declared war on the wrong species." The rest of the human fleet fired coordinated plasma arcs at the disabled Karun vessels. Explosions tore through the rift, debris scattering as the Dominion's formation collapsed entirely. The flagship was boarded, Vorik captured, and the remnants of his fleet in full retreat. Back on the bridge of the Hades Spear, Calder watched as the last enemy ships fled into the void. His crew, exhausted and battered, exhaled collectively. Humanity had survived impossible odds again, and in doing so, they had reshaped the frontier. Mara approached, placing a hand on his shoulder. "We did it. We actually did it." Calder's gaze remained on the drifting wreckage of the rift. "We did more than survive. We reminded the galaxy why humanity isn't to be underestimated. We're relentless. We're adaptive. And we never surrender." The Council on Vanguard 3 hailed him moments later. Admiral Wren's voice, though trembling with relief, was firm. "Captain Calder, humanity owes you more than words can express. You've turned a near catastrophe into a victory that will echo for generations." Calder shook his head. "This isn't about praise. It's about warning. To anyone thinking of striking at us, next time, consider carefully which species you provoke. Because humans remember. And we do not forgive." The captured Vorik was brought aboard for questioning. His arrogance was gone, replaced by stunned comprehension. He had witnessed what centuries of Karun arrogance could not anticipate: humans who thrived on chaos, who adapted instantly, and who fought like survival itself demanded it. The galaxy would remember this battle. The Orion Arm would tell stories of the human fleet's brilliance, their audacity, and their lethal ingenuity. And any species foolish enough to challenge humanity in the future would think twice. Calder finally allowed himself a small, sharp smile. He glanced at his crew, their faces weary but proud. "Congratulations," he said softly. "To the Dominion, you just declared war on the most lethal species alive." The stars stretched endlessly beyond the viewport, silent witnesses to human triumph. Humanity had not only survived, they had awakened the galaxy to a simple truth: humans fight harder, adapt faster, and endure longer than any other species. And those who test them pay the price. As the Hades Spear powered down toward Vanguard 3, Calder knew the war had changed them all. The frontier would never be the same. Humanity had proven itself not just as survivors, but as predators. And the message was clear: provoke humans, and the consequences would be catastrophic. The Orion Rift burned, a testament to human resilience, ingenuity, and ferocity. Humanity had won. And the galaxy would never forget.